low-lying areas and in RV, mobile home, and mobile homes and manufactured homes. For residents who want to leave the area, we are asking you to go ahead and leave. However, the roads may be very congested. So if you have a place you need to get to, you need to start now. Definitely not see you. For those planning to go to one of our shelters, it's time to make that decision. We recommend that in a lot of cases because I think in some cases for some people they've waited too long if they're going to travel a distance, especially with the highways being crowded. The shelters will start opening on Saturday morning at 10. They'll be all open by 12. And so by making the mandatory evacuation at 5 o'clock today, what we're saying is make the decision to go to the shelter, and then you have this evening and tonight to get ready, get your stuff together, and you're supposed to be self-sufficient even at the shelter. We will try to have things there for people, but if you need to bring whatever food you want to bring, whatever, we should have water, but if you want to bring additional water, any medicines you have, and for those that are bringing pet food. So we expect you to prepare yourself and plan this way to leave on Saturday morning to go to the shelter. We want everyone to have decided where they're going to ride out the storm and taken those precautions, especially when they have to evacuate these areas, to have that done by Saturday. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jim Judge, Emergency Management Director for Volusia County. And as you can imagine, we work very closely with the National Hurricane Center, certainly this time of year. But we also work very closely with the National Weather Service out of Melbourne, Florida, which provides specific information for Region 5, which includes Volusia County. So in contact with them today and also participating in the 11:45 conference call, we have the following conditions for Volusia County. Beginning Saturday night, around 11 p.m. to around midnight, we can expect some really squally conditions here in Volusia County. We're going to get some wind, we're going to get some rain as the storm approaches our area. And that's going to continue really overnight. Sunday night, after midnight, 1 o'clock on Sunday, the early hours, we're looking at sustained tropical storm force winds. And again, tropical storm force winds start at 39 miles an hour, and they can go all the way up to 73 miles an hour just prior to Category 1 hurricane. On Sunday, from approximately 5 to 6 p.m. to about midnight, those projected sustained Category 3 winds are possible, with Category 3 starting at 111 miles an hour. And that could last as long as 6 hours. And then beginning Monday at 1 o'clock in the morning through midday Monday, we will continue to have then, as the storm moves north, those sustained tropical storm force winds. And of course, we hope by midday Monday, the conditions will improve and give us the opportunity to get back out. We are anticipating a 3 to 4 foot storm surge along our coast. And the storm surge is coming in right between low and high tide. We are anticipating 8 to 12 inches of rain, with some areas receiving maybe as much as 15 inches. And of course, these are all subject to change, as the storm potentially changes track and moves maybe a little bit left or right, but the bottom line is that whether it shifts a little left or right, we're still in it. So with that, let me turn it over to Ms. Patricia Boswell.
Good afternoon, Patricia Boswell, the Health Officer here at the Department of Health. Well, we have plans to open our 5 special needs shelter tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And we encourage anyone with special needs that need to shelter to come to those shelters. And if you're not special needs, to use the general public shelters. A complete list of shelters is posted at www.volusia.org/pin. Those postings include the locations and directions, and that information is also available on the EM app. Please get your items gathered together today, and if you are being cared for by a caregiver, the caregiver should come with you to the shelter, and they should plan on staying. Make sure you have any durable medical equipment with you, your medications, and anything else that you would need while you're at the shelter. That may include special dietary items. We also want you to understand that going to the hospitals are not a shelter. So that's really what we're trying to discourage. is anyone going to a hospital for shelter without a medical emergency. Thank you. And at this point, our Sheriff, Mike Chipwood, will provide an update.
Thanks for calling me sheriff and not chief. First time today. Good afternoon. The steps that the county's trying to take is, the bottom line is we want to save lives. That's what this is all about. We want to make sure that our residents in our community are safe. In saying that, we're going to implement a curfew that will begin Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. We're asking folks that are in shelters and in their homes to shelter in place, and we're asking them to stay off the streets. Let the first responders do what the first responders need to do. We don't need people out there gawking and rubbernecking and creating a condition where they then become a casualty and then we have to respond. The bridges will be on lockdown as the conditions deteriorate. Right now, we're assuming between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, when the tropical force winds are sustained at 39 miles an hour, the bridges will be closed. Once the storm passes, we will then make the determination of when we're going to open up the bridges to allow residents to return to the beachside. If there is any type of damage on the beachside, we are going to request that the residents present us with identification. And that identification has to include that they live at 123 Main Street. So if your driver's license is in another address, have a utility bill with you or some type of bill that can identify who you are and that you actually live at that property, because obviously if there is heavy damage on the beachside, we want to prevent looting. And again, like I can't reiterate enough, all the steps that the county has taken are all about saving lives. Joanne?
At this time, I'd like Jim Judge to come back up and talk about the general shelters.
Thank you, Joanne. Public shelters will begin opening on Saturday morning in Volusia County. And please, we're asking the public not to go to these shelters before they're open. They are going to open, as Mr. Deneen mentioned, at 10 a.m. We do have 21 shelters throughout Volusia County. A complete list of those shelters is posted at www.volusia.org/pin. And please, use only this list. There's some other lists that have been floating about. We want to make sure that folks do go to the shelter, they're going to the correct one. Also, our app, Volusia County Emergency Management app, also has the shelter locations, which ones are open, which ones aren't, and also directions to the shelters. So that's something that's brand new to the county. We're real excited about that opportunity. We have 2 new shelters we're adding to the list online. One is the Ormond Middle School at 151 Tomasillo Avenue in Ormond Beach. That'll be opening on 10 a.m. on Saturday also. And also the New Smyrna Beach High School at 1015 10th Street, New Smyrna Beach, also opening at 10 a.m. Locations and directions to all these shelters are available again in that new emergency management app. The Daytona Beach Airport, we want to emphasize, is not a shelter. And if you're planning to stay at a public shelter, please make your final preparations so you can go to a shelter in the morning. Please make sure that you have all your supplies together with you, your family, your pets. There is a checklist on that EMM app. And again, you're going on a camping trip, so whatever you're going to take with you is what you'll have in that shelter. So we encourage you to plan carefully.
Mr. Deneen, you want some closing comments?
Yes, thank you. As the sheriff said, it's all about trying to keep people safe, get us through the storm. So you really, it's a whole issue about safety during and after the storm. Specifically after the storm, make sure you listen to all the updates and the instructions from local authorities. Keep in check with your family. You can do that by texting, social media, or our emergency management app. When it is time to return home, or if you've been sheltered at your own home and you go outside, make sure that it's safe. Last year we had 5 deaths. A couple of those deaths where one was from electrocution, where someone walked out in their yard. And you have not only debris out there, but you can have down power lines. So you have to be careful of that. We also had people die where things fell, what we call leaners and hangers. This is debris that's in trees, branches, whatever, maybe loose, it isn't on the ground yet, but you walk out, you have to be aware. That's going to be the issue. Also, if you see any water on the ground, be careful, because in some cases it could have debris in it you don't see that can hurt or cut you. And in addition, if there's a down power line, it could be electrical and end up killing you. Another thing that's unfortunate during this is that we lose power. And when we lose power, a lot of people, myself included, start up their generator. Here's the thing though, that one of the worst deaths we had of the 5 deaths last year was a young person who died of carbon monoxide because they used a generator in an enclosed space. You'd think, well, how could that happen? How would nobody know that? We had 25 other people that were overcome by carbon monoxide because of this issue and didn't die. So we almost could have had 26 deaths out of this instead of 1. Make sure whatever you do, that if you're going to use a generator, use it safely, handle the gasoline safely, but absolutely be sure that that you've given it enough space so that that the generator can operate properly and it doesn't cause you carbon monoxide in whatever place that you're stationed. The other thing I think we have to remember is that Hurricane Irma is a lot different than the Hurricane Matthew. We tend to relate better to the storm that we just had. Well, Hurricane Irma is coming all the way up through the state. So there's going to be a lot of damage to the whole state. In addition, we just had Hurricane Harvey in Texas. Now, why do I mention both of these in context of Volusia County? It's because in Texas, already a good number or a significant portion of some of our resources went there to help those people. The same as during Hurricane Matthew, people came here. So some of our resources left because of that. And here's the other thing. You're going to have the whole state impacted, starting with the southern part of this state. That other resources are going to go there. So what's going to happen is, even if the storm here is no greater than Matthew, which is what we're hoping, but it has the potential of being a lot worse than Matthew. The problem we're going to have, even with the resources we assembled, is we do not have the amount of resources that will be available to us today that we did a year ago when Matthew was here, because they're going to be needed and shared in other places. Because the storm's so large, we do anticipate, like I said, a lot of additional damage. So we encourage the neighbors to help each other. But in this storm, my message is going to be, you're going to have to be patient. We're going to try everything we can to do as good, if not a better, have a better response than we did last year. But the fact of the matter is, this could be a lot more damage, and we could have a lot less resources and have a lot less ability to respond as quickly. So we're going to ask you to make sure that you're patient, you try to be self-sufficient as much as you can. The other thing is a small thing, but a big thing, especially if we are not able to pick up the material as quickly as we did this last year, and that is to make sure that when either you or if you have a contractor remove stuff from your property and put it out along the right-of-way, that you stay back at least 3 feet from the paved surface so cars can get up and down the street. And also, whatever you do, don't cover over fire hydrants. And because we need to get and use those fire hydrants, we need to be able to find them. I want to tell everyone that to be safe, follow the instructions. Please make a decision and be where you need to be for the duration of the storm, hopefully starting Saturday night. And if we all work together, and God willing, we'll all be safe and we'll get through this. Yes.
Jim, you mentioned that the mandatory evacuation for low-lying mobile homes, that kind of thing, begins at
5 o'clock tonight. Now, I want to re-emphasize, 5 o'clock tonight. And why 5 o'clock? One, if you're not going to one of our shelters and you know where you're going to go and you've been putting it off, don't wait any longer, is what we're trying to tell people. Because for one thing, you may find that the roads are more congested than you anticipate, so it could take you longer. And number two, if you haven't decided where you're going to go, but you know it's time to leave, you need to make a decision where you're going to go. And in some cases, if you're going to go to one of our shelters, make that decision so that you'll have the time that night to put together the things that you need to take with you. So when Saturday comes, you can go over and get located in the appropriate shelter that you want to be in.
So it begins at 5, but they have the time to get ready and be out by Saturday because that's when the shelter's open.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And the real storm then, and that gives people some time, the real storm we anticipate will start in the early mornings, the early morning of Sunday. Yes.
Is Sunday's 4 p.m. curfew countywide or just low-lying area?
The start, my understanding, Sheriff, is it's going to be countywide. Yes, sir. The 4 o'clock curfew, we want everyone to understand we're serious. It'll start 4 o'clock, and the sheriff will decide with the cities when that curfew comes on.
So all the cities are aboard, Sheriff, correct? Meaning, this curfew applies to Daytona Beach, the city of?
Yeah, we've been in contact with all the chiefs, and we've all agreed, and the chiefs had asked in the last 2 days, we need a curfew, and we agree. You know, we don't need anybody out clogging up the streets. This is a dangerous, deadly event, and let the first responders do what they need to do.
I just was saying, closing, I thought that last year that all of the citizens worked together, all the governments worked together to try and make this as safe as we could, and to get people through it, and to hope that we could minimize the personal damage to people in terms of anybody getting hurt or whatever. And I thought we were very successful. I mean, we can't change the storm, but we can change how we respond. I thought everyone, and I congratulated the media for getting the word out last year. I thought we were successful in how we handled the emergency. I think we're not only as good, but I think better prepared in terms of understanding all the details that we need to deal with. But this is a potentially a lot more powerful, a lot more damaging storm. It's a lot more dangerous. And like I said, we're not going to have quite the resources we had, not because we didn't prepare, but we have to share. Other people have gotten really hurt. There is one other thing that I'd like to get this message out too, and that is if by chance anyone decides, and they've been coming up from maybe someplace south and they're on one of our highways, if by chance people get to our area and they cannot go any further and the storm catches up with them, is that they also need to make a decision, and they need to feel that they're welcome to go to our shelters here if they end up getting stuck on the highway here. And especially if somebody, say for example, if people get here, they pull off for gas, they realize they're not going to get to where they are. We want to make sure these people understand they're welcome to go to any of our shelters. We're going to try and have that information everywhere. But we didn't have this issue last year because of the way the storm followed the coast. You got to remember now, you're all seeing this being in the media, all the enormous amount of people that have tried to come north. We're afraid that this time there's a potential that people could end up being on the highways and on different roads and have the storm catch up with them. And the worst place to try and ride the storm out, especially if you have a family with you, would be in your car. So we want to make sure everybody understands, get that word out too, that maybe if you got in this part, even if you were trying to go somewhere else, maybe you got to decide that you're going to stay here and come to one of our shelters. Thank you.
And just one more thing that we want to mention, Volusia County Citizen Information Center is available for people who have questions on how to prepare for Hurricane Irma. We call it the CIC. It will be open until 8 p.m. today, and then beginning at 8 a.m. on Saturday, the CIC will operate 24/7 until further notice. And that number for people to call is 866-345-0345. And to date, we've had over 2,500 calls to that hotline. So we have people standing by ready to answer any questions that anybody has. So any other questions from the media? All right, thank you very much.
Coach, no questions?